What's good, people? Welcome.
Welcome.
Everybody ready?
Yes, sir.
This is Blunt Talk, all caps, no space, NOLA, on YouTube. I'm the dog, your whole Silent Child. 17.
P360 in the building.
Top tracks in the building.
Yeah, and we are in war, people, and a lot of stuff been going on around us right now with this Ukraine thing and uh, a lot of other things popping up while this Ukraine thing is supposed to be going on. So me and the fellas, we was just talking and stuff, and I said, "Hey, it might be a good idea if we just start breaking some of this stuff down." And the CIA came in mind with a lot of play because of some things that just been recently popping up in the news. And before I get to all that, I wanted us to actually just go through a couple of things and just break down some of this stuff. Who is the CIA and who was the head runner, who created it, and why it was created? Does it still exist? And all these tactics that they use to create this, organization is this still, a thing? And with that being said, we ran across a couple of videos. We just wanted to give y'all a quick little synopsis, and we just gonna give y'all our point of view on it. You know what I'm saying? So y'all sit back, relax, chill. You know what I'm saying? Let my dog do his thing. So chop whenever you ready, bro. And whenever y'all free, if y'all want to just jump in, y'all want pause it or whatever, y'all just let Chop know or Chop you if you just jump on in, y'all.
All right.
America has a lot of intelligence agencies, whopping 16 to be exact. During the Cold War, two stand out as particularly important players in the spy versus spy game between the United States and the Soviet Union: the National Security Agency and the Central Intelligence Agency. The CIA was and is tasked with spying and espionage abroad, while the NSA concerns itself with monitoring and decrypting communications. Both of them developed from the experiences America had during the two world wars and during the 20th century would grow to become shadowy organizations with secret budgets and powers beyond possibly even their own government's control. But before we tell the story of what they've done, or at least have been accused of doing, we have to, as we did in our video on the KGB, find out about the humble origins of these two organizations. I'm your host, David, and this week it's all about cloak and dagger bureaucracy. This is the Cold War. All warfare is won and lost on intelligence. As long as countries have been competing for power, there have been spies to uncover and counter each other's plans.
If y'all got
The
Apple,
value of
y'all looking at
intelligence has
something
been
else, you
written
gotta
about
close it.
at
Is that
least
going?
as far back as Sun Tzu. By the time of the World Wars, however, the game had changed quite a bit. Inventions in technology like radios, machine encryption, and advanced cryptography created a need for a much broader bureaucracy to handle the sheer volume of information. Now, the first seeds of what would become the NSA and CIA come from the First World War. The US found itself needing telegraph machines and cable
Pause it
systems
right quick,
to
Chop.
coordinate the US's efforts against the Germans.
That's what I was telling you about, man. What I was saying. Now you see how they say it this man said it blended from the First World War.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It came, so it was all this was already happening already. A lot of
Right.
a lot of this already started over there. That's a lot of that shit trickled from over here, and like they saying, a lot of this, a lot of the things and the efforts that they doing, kind of was already, in progress already. You know,
Right.
before the actual existence of the CIA. But go ahead. Anybody else want to say something about what you hear so far?
Yeah, I think the need for the intelligence community or the rise of the intelligence community, like you said, like he said, and like we should have figured, It started with the First World War because there were a lot of messages being passed back and forth from Central Command to the people on the front line, and they had to have somebody on the opposite side to be able to decrypt those messages, and it just was a
Hmm.
long list of shit that they
A
had to
lot of
have done.
yeah, a lot of cackling. Yeah, a lot of back and forth and seeing who doing what. Before anybody even do anything. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of spy games, as they say.
Right.
Hell yeah.
To handle the development of codes and ciphers for said machines, the US set up a small Washington bureau to manage this operation called the Cable and Telegraph Bureau, or Cipher Bureau.
There
By
we
the
go.
end of the war, it had moved to New York City and absorbed the other cryptographic organization managed by the US Navy. It was also renamed to Military Intelligence, or MI8. After the war, although MI8 was officially disbanded, instead of shutting down the organization, it continued under the name of the Cipher Bureau, which
Bam. See
even
how they
had its
do
own
that?
disguise,
They erase
posing
it
as
and
a
then put it
private
under another
company
name
selling commercial
That's right.
code.
as a private
Still, it
company.
had
Yeah.
the intriguing nickname of the Black Chamber. It did peacetime cryptanalytic work for the State Department and US Army. Their work focused on intercepting and breaking the diplomatic codes of other countries,
Is that an old
including
ass
allies,
typewriter? God
because let's be
damn.
honest, every country is spying on every other country to one extent or another. There's no real trust in high politics. They got the telegrams by convincing Western Union to illegally send them copies
Western
of
Union,
telegrams
y'all.
Western
going
Union.
to consulates
Wait, go
and
back.
embassies
Pause the
within the
chat,
US.
please, dog.
They,
Western
Dog,
fucking Telegraph
illegally though.
by convincing Western Union.
So Western Union was the what you would call that Western Union was the messy bitch in the streets.
Western Union was how you used to send messages. Remember the telegraph
That's
wire?
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
How you
they
send
used
messages today through Facebook and Instagram.
uh all through electronic ways.
How you know it? Look, how you know I don't like you? I comment under your post and say something crazy, right?
That
How
would be one
this
surefire.
is Western Union was doing this. Western Union was telling niggas who was beefing with niggas, man. That's what they telling you now. Western, Western Union was shipping this shit illegally. Look, go back about a couple of seconds. Chop like about 20 seconds. And let it play. This shit crazy, man. Western Union in the man. Come on, man. You see them bitches still
their
smoking.
work focused on intercepting and breaking the diplomatic codes of other countries, including allies, because let's be honest, every country is spying on every other country to one extent or another. There's no real trust in high politics. They got the telegrams by convincing Western Union to illegally send them copies of telegrams going to consulates and embassies within the US. They'd continue to do this until a 1927 law passed increasing punishments for intercepting other people's telegrams. The Black Chamber was led by cryptologist Herbert Yeardley, who ran the organization until the government cut it in 1929. In something that may be seen as out of place today, the US government closed it because, well, gentlemen don't read other people's mail. Yeardley, for his part, continued to do a little bit of work doing cryptography for the Canadian and Chinese governments during the Second World War, and then wrote a book on his time in the Black Chamber. I should also note that in 1930, the military set up its own cryptanalysis organization as a sort of successor called the Signal Intelligence Service, which we'll talk more about in just a moment.
The SIS.
This project was only the beginning of such programs and nowhere close to the end of them. The Second World War would end up revitalizing and vastly expanding such programs, leading to the births of both the CIA and NSA. Now, during the Second World War, the US and UK found themselves working in close collaboration with each other. As such, the Americans saw the effectiveness of the British intelligence services. The British trained special operations officers through the Special Operations Executive, whose job was to raid and sabotage German operations in continental Europe. They modeled their tactics after their experience fighting the Boers in South Africa. They
Bam.
would strike hard and fast and then disappear before the enemy could mount a response. Along with this, the British also had a well developed cryptanalytic intelligence operation known as the Secret Intelligence Service, or MI6. MI6 decoded enemy radio transmissions, collected information with aerial photography, and even worked on
They
sewing
went from MIA
disinformation
to
to the
MI6, huh?
to confuse their
SIS.
spies. These two organizations inspired US President Franklin Roosevelt and prompted the
Roosevelt.
US to make
Okay.
its own version. He signed into existence a new intelligence organization called the Office of Strategic Services, or
Office of
OSS,
Strategic
in
Services.
1942.
There you go. There
The
you go, Chap. That's
OSS
the one I'm
became a
telling you about.
precious
The
asset for
OSS.
the United States and the
1942.
Allies during the
Roosevelt
war,
signed
figuring
that
out
one.
how the German
That's the
war effort functioned.
that's
When the Americans
Super
entered the
Saiyan
European
1 of the
theater of
CIA.
the war, the OSS
Okay.
found allies and landing spots in North Africa for the US military to begin their invasion there. They also sabotaged infrastructure, spread anti Nazi propaganda, and organized resistance fighters against
go.
both the Germans and Japanese. Many Cold War figures, like Ho Chi Minh and Mao Zedong, received arms and training for their
Pause it
soldiers
right quick,
from
Chap.
OSS operatives.
I wanted people to kind of pay attention to the last little couple of paragraphs is here, y'all, because that's gonna be important for the next bill. I just love the way they are just freely just doing all this shit, y'all. Ain't it amazing? Ain't it amazing how they getting all the funding and all this shit to do all this shit, y'all?
Mhm.
I mean, these motherfuckers is spreading. You heard they spreading anti-Nazi propaganda. So think about that, y'all. How is that propaganda if Hitler and the Nazis is supposed to be the white supremacists and all this? You know what they were saying, like that you're spreading anti-Nazi. So we go. So it's like you automatically feeding people, I guess, right? You. It's like you shoving it down their throat, even if this may be true. Isn't it like kind of in that way? Because he said they was using anti-Nazi propaganda, not Nazi propaganda. They was using ways of the Nazis to push what they call democracy. But how is it democracy when y'all doing all that espionage and shit? Got Western Union and shit, bringing illegal, stopping illegal telegraph. You know, all just it's a lot of fucked up ways that y'all doing, but y'all acting like y'all ain't doing. It's just like, you know, you're throwing bricks and hiding your hand.
Right.
You know, so
Throwing
I
a
just
brick,
want to, you know,
throwing a brick
just
without
keep
even
targeting
seeing
that
you
word
through the brick.
propaganda, people. You know, propaganda, because it's gonna pop up a lot. But, you know, if anybody else ain't got to say,
think,
please.
I don't think that people consider the fact that uh, a
You
government.
could speak up a little bit. I hear a little.
I don't think people consider the fact that the government is their government, and you know what I'm saying. Like that's just like the Western Union thing. Like the Western Union wasn't bringing no fucking telegrams nowhere. That shit had to come through Corner Express or whatever. But basically, it's like if me, you, and Paul was to go to move to fucking Utah or something. We're gonna try to find our own in that area and create our own if we talking about the times that they did what they did or whatever. Because the years that they're talking about is around all the land stealing and shit years or whatever. So that's basically what happened. But like I can't say it no other way, but that way. But I think that they monitor us for certain shit. You know what I'm saying? Probably to see what's going on or to see what to sell or what not to sell or do or whatever. But I think that at the end of the day, they ultimately scared that everybody come together and try to smash America up on some shit. So that's why they have all these secret agencies and shit. Cause fuck, they scared. They gotta fucking do something. Cause they don't know
And a lot of it though, don't you? If just by listening to how he breaking it down, a lot of it seemed instigated too, though.
Correct. I
You know what I'm
really
saying? It
believe that's
seemed
the
like
fact. And a
we
lot of it was
instigating a lot of
instigated.
shit. Ain't nobody even fucking with us. Even like using the tools that they're using and using the so-called intelligence that they're using. These motherfuckers flying over people's shit and and just bullying them like though. But saying like where we come in here to liberate you like. But why are you killing everybody? If you know what I'm saying? Like it's weird, though. It's like a catch-22. Like how scared are you, nigga?
I really feel to believe that a big bulk of it is the fact that they're afraid that the people will revolt and there will no longer be a need for a government because people will start governing themselves accordingly. So to stop that, spy, gather information, and use that information as a justified means of assassination.
Because government, because to me, I think it's the way they want to govern. I think is what they don't want to let go. You know what I'm saying? Because I think people always kind of had a government. You know, in a way, we just didn't call it government, and it was mostly preachers or priests who were over, the tribes or whatever. So we always had that kind of system in place, as I say. But the way you run it, you know what I'm saying, with all the secrecies and the spying on this person, and going all the way across the country, worrying about how these people are running their country, those type of things. It's kind of instigative, if that's a word. You know what I'm saying? And they got a lot of explaining to do. He's doing a good job of breaking this down. That OSS thing too, bro. Like OSS, yeah, OSS and that SIS. Like these motherfuckers had the tell like the you saw them little computer thing, so I know they watching that, yeah. With these motherfuckers had the damn what you call that shit, the Morris code telegraph tele. You saw them damn typewriter looking fucking thing. Man, the
yeah,
people had the machines and shit, before motherfuckers was even on that type of, on that type of level. But man, it's crazy though, y'all. So far, so good, y'all.
Not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but the US does have an established track record of training and arming its future enemies.
All
But
right,
digress.
see,
Now, it's also
you
during
heard
this
that, huh?
time, and this is not officially
Drop they
confirmed,
training on
since the paper
enemies.
trail either remains classified or may have
That's
even
right.
been destroyed, the
Osama bin
OSS
Laden was
purchased
trained by
cryptographic
the U.S.
tools
See,
for both
sounds
the
familiar,
Soviet
doesn't it?
powers,
See,
while still wartime allies with Moscow, spying on your friends and all of that.
spying on
At
your
the same time
friends. Look,
this was going on, the Signal
sound like some
Intelligence
Puff Daddy
Service
shit.
continued to provide cryptanalysis for the Army, trying to decipher
He
active
did it.
communications, as well as train signal units for the battlefield. Think of the OSS as spies and commandos in the field, while
Look
the
at this.
SIS were Washington-based mathematicians in suits breaking codes.
Wow.
Notably, about 70% of the SIS's staff were women. Included
Wow.
in these women would be future NSA Deputy Director and Japanese codecracker extraordinaire Anne Cara Christie. Her
Wow.
team's work uncovered the shipping codes of the Japanese Navy and wound up sinking 2/3 of their merchant
Yeah,
marine.
the women's movement was
Like
proud
the
of that, bro.
SIS, they too began to intercept and try to crack Soviet codes, which would lead to the Venona project, which we've actually talked about in earlier videos, and we'll
They got
discuss
apps,
more
so
in
you know
the
you're
future.
looking at something close.
This Venona project exposed a network of Soviet spies across North America, including the collection of nuclear spies at Los Alamos. With the war's end in 1945, the OSS and SIS were both dissolved as organizations and absorbed into other bureaucracies. There was
Absorbed
a
into
major
other
discussion in
bureaucracies,
American
y'all. Y'all
military
heard that?
circles about how to organize the post-war armed forces. In these early meetings, the first utterance of making a centralized intelligence agency was floated, which manifested itself, against the wishes of the Army and the FBI, mind you, into the National Intelligence Authority. US President Harry Truman signed the organization
go.
into existence in 1946, as well as an operations group known as the Central
1946.
Intelligence Group, or CIG.
The
Next
C.I.A.
year, however, in the face of the deepening
See.
conflict with the Soviet Union, Truman signed the National Security Act, which reorganized both these organizations yet again. One became the National Security Council, which is the body the president goes to for discussion on national security issues, and the Central Intelligence Agency. The famous, or infamous, CIA was officially born. The CIA was created with 4 relatively broad main tasks in mind. 1. Advise the National Security Council on matters related to national security. 2. Make recommendations to the NSC regarding the coordination of intelligence activities of the departments. 3. Correlate and evaluate intelligence and provide for its appropriate dissemination. And 4. Perform such other functions as the NSC will from time to time direct. In 1949, the Central Intelligence Agency Act gave it a secret budget, allowed for a secret organizational structure, and gave it extreme protection from any form of accountability or transparency. The intent was to allow the new agency freedom to operate quickly
Secret
in defense
budget.
of liberty and justice without bureaucracy to slow things down. What could possibly go wrong here, right? Now, also in
Because
1949,
our government is being funded by these private
through
corporations.
the government became
Remember, they
centralized
turned it
under
into
one
private
organization
corporations,
called the Armed
so you can't
Forces
chase,
Security
so you can't
Agency.
trace the money.
The chiefs of staff of the different branches of the armed forces all commanded them. This organizational structure is a big deal, as jurisdictional fights between the branches of the military were, and still are, a big thing. Some strange developments, like nuclear submarines, for example, are part of the compromise to let every branch of the military have its own nukes, for example. But the problem with the AFSA from the beginning was that, unlike the CIA, it was a military organization, and thus it didn't coordinate well with the civilian structure of the US government. They clashed and rarely communicated well with their siblings like the CIA and FBI. The AFSA was stepping on a lot of toes, and generally the intelligence branches of the US weren't functioning well. This organizational problem prompted a need for yet another. It was a military organization, and thus it didn't coordinate well with the civilian structure of the US government. They clashed and rarely communicated well with their siblings like the CIA and FBI. The AFSA was stepping on a lot of toes, and generally the intelligence branches of the
Siblings,
US
yo.
weren't functioning well. This organizational problem prompted a need for yet another reorganization effort ordered by President Truman in 1951.
1951.
This investigation resulted in the directive to create the National Security Agency, which came into existence late the next year. The NSA would be in charge of all communications intelligence, while the CIA took care of espionage. But here's the thing, that was all a secret. The NSA was a secret branch of the intelligence service.
Right.
The memo creating it was classified, and the joke around the office was that the NSA stood for no such agency. The US government would grow to become obsessed with intelligence gathering and analysis. Hence the
Obsessed, man.
16
They won't know
agencies I
everything
mentioned
now.
earlier.
Look,
Secrets and special operations were par for the course. Throughout this channel's run, many of the plans to assassinate the leaders of decolonization movements, overthrow governments, or sabotage communist organizations would occur under the watch of the CIA. At the same time, the NSA would have its ears everywhere, and which we saw when Edward Snowden leaked plans on PRISM really means everywhere. The FBI would use similar tactics to undermine the domestic anti-war and civil rights movements at home. All of this was done in the name of stopping communism, or, depending on your worldview, to crush dissent at home. More than one parallel has been drawn to their KGB cousins in the Soviet Union.
KGB
The Cold War would allow these intelligence agencies to grow into massive, almost unaccountable bureaucracies, which in some ways persist to this day.
Wow.
We hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and to make sure you don't miss all of our future episodes, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel and wiretap the bell button. We can be reached via email at thecoldwarchannel@gmail.com, and we're also at patreon.com. The trouble with the Cold War is that it doesn't take too long before it becomes heated. America has
Yeah, fellas.
So for the folks out there listening, just know you're being listened to, you're being watched, you're being spied on, you're being manipulated.
He said them people got obsessed with that shit. That's he said true. So we know Truman. Really he was serious. His whole presidency, he wanted that shit to happen. And he made sure they even made a black budget for them. So if you think about it, we don't know how much money has been
Actually funneled
through these what do you call them? Different bureaus. Because like he said, a lot of them started, emerging after they so-called shut down the first two. We shut down the first two, and all the other ones popped up. C.I.A, FBI, ATL. But bucks start popping up like gremlins, yeah.
Yeah, they had a whole bunch of their.
Yeah.
all over.
So they got obsessed with it. So now you see when we was looking at that chart, yeah. I don't know if you we still got that chart, but we'll probably show it on another episode. But they got a chart where they showing the roots of all those other bureaus, and there's so many of them blossomed out of that one concept. It's crazy, yo. It's crazy. And I think a lot of it is uncalled for too.
As they have said, necessity is the mother of all inventions.
I think a lot of it is uncalled for too.
There are 16 different federal agencies gathering intelligence for the U.S. government. In 2004, 17th, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence was set up to oversee them all. Here's what's known about America's intelligence community and how the different branches operate. Start with the armed forces. Each service has at least one major intelligence organization to support its information needs. Then there are intelligence departments. Those are the offices embedded in other government agencies to enable their missions. The Office of National Security Intelligence analyzes major drug cartels and facilitates counter-narcotics efforts. The Office of Intelligence and Counterintelligence, which provides analysis on foreign nuclear weapons and global energy issues. The Office of Intelligence and Analysis, which focuses on domestic threats. The Bureau of Intelligence and Research, which provides analysis for the Secretary of State and ambassadors. And the Office of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, which focuses on international economic issues. Finally, the national agencies that help advise the Director of National Intelligence. Those include the CIA, which collects and analyzes foreign intelligence to inform policymakers, the NSA, which mostly monitors foreign information systems for signals intelligence, collecting data, including cell phone and email traffic, for intelligence and counterintelligence purposes, and sometimes sweeping up information about Americans in the process. The Defense Intelligence
Look at all
Agency,
these illegitimate kids, yo. This is crazy.
the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, which charts and maps the physical Earth and human activity for national
The
security,
chart's physical Earth and the
national
maps human activity.
which designs,
Damn.
builds, launches, and maintains U.S. spy satellites. And there's the FBI's Counterintelligence Unit, which helps protect the American homeland from foreign intelligence operations here. For the 2015 fiscal year, the White House requested $60 billion.
There we go. Look at this.
These agencies
Look
combined,
at this shit.
but that's known as the black budget because the
The
breakdown.
black budget, yo.
Earlier this year,
See?
Democrats introduced
Look at that.
legislation that would force the White House to reveal more details about how that
Right in
funding
your face. Appreciate that. Trap track. You was right on time, player. So that's what I'm talking about. Now look how far back they go, y'all. Them people been playing since the 1920s, been building it up, building it, flipped it, revamped it, got rid of 2, blossomed out with 15.
Shit don't
Oh,
mean
like
no
no, it's like they was like, oh no, we ain't ready, we ain't worried about it because we ain't doing none of this on there. We ain't ready on other people. None of that, no. But then you find out they doing all this other shit, then more bureaus pop up.
And it really sounds like that's just the need to want to dominate and control something.
Look at that. The First World War is coming to an end. American soldier William J. Donner. And remember, put yourself in a time frame, people. If y'all listening to this, if y'all run across this, put yourself in this time frame. This is right after the First World War. The first bull that they ran through this month. Pay attention how they put all this shit in place, just from something simple as a cartoon, y'all. Wow. I'm gonna break it down. Because I'm telling you, Roosevelt looked like he got caught in the pros with it. Because he was already, looked like he was already on that kind of like, that stern, all American way, as they say. So that kind of ran right up his alley, but he was already on.
Right.
That motherfucker, picture that motherfucker ain't know it. It will be doing all this shit. Them boys from the bottom of your feet to the top of the clouds, yo. They got agencies everywhere, y'all. Did y'all see that shit? Them badges, all the different badges. Damn. Am I the only one tripped out on that shit? Bro, that was a lot of different agencies, bro. They looking at everything, bro. They got an agency for toe jam. Did you see that shit?
Yeah, they got one for everything.
And we really not understanding that all these so-called agencies that's out here is just here just to really be in your business.
And in your pockets too. Who's paying for all this? 360.
You
Who's
are.
paying
You
for
paying
this?
to be spied on. We
Am I
pay
missing
the
something?
government to spy on us.
Shit. Is this what Uncle Sam is? This is what they talking about? Oh, man, come on.
Yep.
We just
Yeah.
said that. Yeah. Like E4. Yeah. Man, I thought they were supposed to do. Nope. Mm.
Trying to help us. They build an organization.
To an end, and an American soldier named William J. Donovan is struck by shrapnel in the leg in France and is almost blinded by toxic gas. During the war, he will lead dangerous rescues of soldiers and will also head campaigns against the enemy in which scores of his fellow men will die. He will battle on, refusing to follow orders or take off his medals while fighting. He doesn't care if those medals will make him a target for enemy snipers. They can't hit me and they won't hit you, he will say to his men. But he will get hit again, this time in the knee. He refuses to be evacuated, though, and keeps giving orders. Donovan seems fearless, and that's one of the reasons he left World War I with the nickname Wild Bill. After the first of the World Wars ended, Donovan had been awarded the Medal of Honor, the Distinguished Service Cross, the Distinguished Service Medal, the Silver Star, and more awards from other nations. He received the Silver Star and the Purple Heart on top of that for what he'd endured in battle. You'd be hard-pressed to find an American soldier who was more decorated for his efforts in the war. But today, he's renowned more for not what he did on the battlefield, but for being considered the founding father of U.S. intelligence. He's regarded as the man who kicked off what would become the Central Intelligence Agency. And that's why, if you visit the agency's headquarters in Langley today, you'll see a statue of him. How all this evolved is a fascinating story, but let's first go back to the beginning of this man's life. Bill was born on New Year's Day in the year of 1883. His place of birth was Buffalo, New York, and his parents were born to parents who had made the trip from Ireland to the USA in search of a better life. His father was tough and emphasized to young Bill the importance of duty and keeping one's honor, while his mother inculcated in him the importance of beauty and art. His parents were strict Catholics, and whilst growing up, Bill played with the idea of becoming a priest. But as time went by, Catholic dogma didn't sit well with him. Instead, he focused on his education and became a successful student at Columbia University. He later attended Columbia Law School, where he would share a classroom at times with the president-to-be Franklin D. Roosevelt. They didn't know it then, but these two would become main characters in the story of the USA, and they'd also share the same plot line at times. While working in law, he helped create something called the New York National Guard, and this is when he devoted much of his time to military strategy. Bill might become one hell of a brave soldier, but his military mind was what would lead him to becoming an apex kind of leader. He became entrenched in military matters, leading efforts on the U.S.-Mexican border in the fight against the Mexican revolutionary by the name of Francisco Pancho Villa. At this time, the First World War was already claiming countless lives in Europe, and soon Bill would become literally entrenched in that. In 1917, he was a major and led the 1st Battalion of the 165th Infantry of the 42nd Division. He might have been on the older side compared to the young men that fought with him, but his endurance and fearlessness would become legendary. He fought in many battles and witnessed utter carnage, while he suffered grave injuries himself. It was all those losses of men and pools of blood that played a part in the evolution of Bill's thinking. He realized that to win wars, you need to outsmart the enemy, and military intelligence is key to that. In the ensuing years, he would be awarded the Medal of Honor for his heroic actions during that war, and on receiving the award, more than 4,000 veterans turned up to the ceremony. We can't state enough how much respect Bill had from those who had served with him or heard about him. He then surprised everyone and said he didn't want the medal. In his own words, he said it belonged to the boys who are not here, the boys who are resting under the white crosses in France or in cemeteries in New York, also to the boys who were lucky enough to come through. In the 1920s, Bill became the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of New York. He might have been popular among soldiers, but when Bill took very seriously his part in the war on alcohol, he gained quite a few detractors. This was the era of prohibition in the USA, and he made sure the law was strictly enforced. He also fell out with some people belonging to the New York's rich, because he raided their clubs too. Many of the wealthy during that time thought they were immune to the law, but that wasn't the case when Bill was attorney. He was seen by the working people as at least fair and gained a reputation for fighting corruption. This got him a position in the Department of Justice after a lot of officials had been found out to be corrupt and involved in scandal.
There, he decided that it was time to hire more women, and he let it be known that he didn't much like staff that didn't question authority. About this time, he became embroiled in a fight against the Bureau of Investigation's director, one J. Edgar Hoover. Bill was macho, handsome, clever, and well-liked, while Hoover was full of insecurities and was, we might say, a strange and petty man at times. Hoover didn't like seeing the rise of Bill, and the two butted heads frequently. This relationship would get worse as Bill moved into intelligence, and Hoover himself was spying on anyone who he took a dislike to. A small internal war broke out between the two men. Hoover versus Donovan would become the fight of the century in the realms of government. But first, the Second World War had to happen, and on the lead up to that, Bill had been hired to visit parts of Europe and collect intelligence there. He started to make close relationships with British spies and high-ups in the government. He visited Nazi Germany, fascist Italy, and traveled extensively, meeting heads of government in other countries. His opinion after his travels was that war was inevitable, and of course, he was right. He soon became an important advisor to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, even though the two men had been on opposite sides of the political spectrum. When Nazi Germany at the start of the war just blitzed anyone who stood in its way, both Roosevelt and British leader Winston Churchill were agreed on one thing, and that was that Germany was more powerful than anyone had expected. Germany's blitzkrieg tactics and very effective propaganda was without question a force to be reckoned with. So who did Roosevelt send to Britain to talk to Churchill about that? Yes, it was Bill Donovan. Bill met with the leader. He talked with British intelligence, and even had a bite to eat with King George VI. Churchill, of course, with his military background and love of legend, got along very well with Wild Bill, and he granted Bill access to top-secret information. Bill went back to the U.S. and told the president that Britain had what it took to fight the Germans, but the USA needed to get in on the act. He also told Roosevelt that the U.S. needed an agency, much like Britain's intelligence services. Long before the CIA, there was the British Secret Service Bureau, and the branches we all know as MI5 and MI6. In fact, British intelligence really goes back centuries, but the modern bureau impressed Wild Bill. It was during this time that he spent a lot of time working with these secretive British agencies and with some spies who belonged to them. He spent hours looking over British intelligence reports, charts, and being trained by various personnel and spies. Bill had one thing on his mind, and that was to create an American version of what the British had. And that's exactly what he did. One British agent who helped Bill write the blueprint for his agency was none other than Commander Ian Fleming, the writer of the James Bond novels. The two men would also go on to work with each other on certain sabotage operations. Make no mistake, the U.S. Army, Navy, FBI, as well as the State Department all had their own intelligence units. They had their own charts. Spies skulked around for them, but it wasn't organized. Bill knew one organization had to be bigger and better. Roosevelt knew that too, and in 1941, he made Bill Donovan the head of the Coordinator of Information, or COI. This would soon get a name change and become the Office of Strategic Services, or the OSS for short. Not everyone in the U.S. was happy about this, though, with some heads of other branches of the military and government agencies seeing this new outfit as a threat to them. They didn't think there was any need for an entity that was in some ways above them. What happened was a kind of turf war. But the OSS went from strength to strength, and soon Bill was training new recruits. He devised all kinds of strategies to spy and attack based on a new kind of warfare. He hired folks from all walks of life, from intellectuals to creatives to criminals. He got on board businessmen,
all walks of life,
and poets who could sway the minds of the public. He had famous psychiatrists working for him who analyzed enemies, and he had some of the USA's wealthiest people working in certain ways for the OSS. It was a force unto itself, and like nothing else the US had seen. This rising power did meet with some difficulties, though. Soon, British intelligence became wary of it, as Bill's team mounted
Ooh, quick pause, right quick. Yeah, that's crazy though, man. So tough, man. While Bill was already on it,
it's
boy.
important that they sound like me. There's something about
While Bill got
me
that,
and just
he got the
making
idea
my
from
own
him.
Ah.
It's like this motherfucker like we just found a dude who created basketball or something. It's crazy, man.
Arcade
While
is a
Bill
movie
ain't even know he created it.
content delivered every single day.
He just
And
took like
tools
they
to
taking
transform
his
every-
tactics.
It even lets you use your own loops.
And then you're using it for the journeys. This is the crazy part. Wow.
Let me show you how this works. They set up the white keys to play loops and the black keys to mess them up in real time. When you open up Arcade's browser, you'll find a bunch of product lines. with
You can skip
curated
the ad, player.
unlocked to tempo and key. The fact that I can download everything within the plugin is huge. No more dealing with websites and folders.
On your right side. Skip the ad.
Arcade is like nothing else. It helps me work faster. It's constantly evolving, and that's what I want music to do. This is game changing.
Say nothing like in love. The way we love, girl. There ain't nothing left on you. My love, love, love. Right now.
Shout out to whoever that nigga.
This game,
You.
you're not ready for it.
What is going on here?
You're in the middle of this beautiful sci-fi
Top
environment,
track. You can stop it.
and you're seeing intrigue, the espionage, the alliances form, the power that shifts around it. It's amazing to watch.
Simple actions can have massive effects.
You can cooperate with people, compete with them, make friendships, deceive them, betray them.
P360. What's going on with him, bro?
Brother, I think that coffee might have put him to sleep.
I don't think that coffee and all that work.
Actions, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Unless he done left the thing. I don't know what's going on, bro.
Get locked up and shot instantly. People start dying left, right, and center. It's just something that you can't get anywhere else. It's just the rush like no other.
Cause you could skip the ad. They got the little thing right there on the sides.
Journey and
I think he might be out right now, bro. Man, see, he is
Things continue to change and evolve. It's awesome. I love it. Part of me.
Chop track.
Espionage and sabotage operations all over the world. The British didn't much like the style of the OSS at times, and even once said it was playing cowboys and red Indians. The Brits thought their intelligence was, more intelligent. The OSS, of course, now had a presence in various parts of the British Empire, and MI6 wasn't keen on having US secret agents performing chess moves on its own turf. Inside the US, some critics in the media said the OSS was an American Gestapo, and there were fears that ordinary American citizens would suffer. They believed Nazi-style propaganda would pervade the USA. Parts of the military feared that a super spy agency might get out of control and have too much power. Then there's that famous spat with FBI Director Hoover, who had his own dossier of information pertaining to the wrongdoings of Wild Bill. That dossier contained information about Bill's womanizing and some sketchy ties to British intelligence. Wild Bill was reckless, according to Hoover. At the same time, the OSS had its own dossier on Hoover, which included information about his alleged sexual orientation. Hoover sent what were called poison and memos to Roosevelt about shady methods employed by Bill, and he wanted nothing more than to bring him down. Hoover painted Bill as a villain, but it didn't do anything to impress Roosevelt, who had always believed in Bill. As time went by in the early 1940s, this fear of the American Gestapo grew, some of it flamed by Hoover. The OSS had its successes, but it also had its failures, some of which were leaked to the press. Then in 1945, Bill penned a secret proposal to approve an even bigger spy agency, and it sounded a bit like the secret police. That secret letter got leaked, and this caused some amount of damage to the image of Bill and the OSS. Hoover had even embedded a female mole to spy on Wild Bill, and she relayed a lot of information back to Hoover. Bill would always blame Hoover for the leak, and he believed Hoover tried for many years to destroy him. After all, Hoover wanted to be America's top spy czar. The thing is, though, in Bill's own attempt to become one of the most powerful men in America, he had fallen out with a lot of people. He lost a lot of powerful friends. And then, when his most powerful ally died, he found himself in trouble. That ally, of course, was Roosevelt. When the next president, Harry S. Truman, came to power, the OSS was still suffering from negative criticism due to some people still saying it was a Gestapo-like operation, but in the USA. The renowned Army general and later a president himself, Dwight D. Eisenhower, called the OSS vital, but this didn't stop its downfall. Others said it was way too close to British intelligence, and so basically allowed British spies some control in the USA.
What?
So was that the end of Wild Bill?
How he thought.
Not at all. He played a big part in the Nuremberg trials and helped bring war criminals to justice. But then in 1945, when Bill asked Truman to create an updated post-war intelligence agency,
How
he
y'all
was
know
snubbed.
who is who, man? Y'all play too much.
Not long after that,
Yeah,
Truman
so
realized
much of
the
it
need
going
for a
on,
central
bro.
intelligence agency, and you can guess who wanted to be the head of that. Yes, Wild Bill, of course. Many members of the former OSS would become part of this agency, but Bill would never sit in the big seat. He might have written the book in one sense for a certain kind of super agency, but he wouldn't lead it as the Cold War escalated. Bill was always there behind the scenes, and he thought he might be head of the CIA when Eisenhower came to power, but it didn't happen. In 1953, he took the position of ambassador to Thailand. You might wonder why, and the reason is because Thailand was next to Vietnam, and the spread of communism in Southeast Asia was feared by the US. The CIA would play a big part in shaping Thailand's destiny, which is not taught in school textbooks in Thailand today. The CIA secretly helped orchestrate many events that happened in Southeast Asia over the years, and the fight against communism would be a bloody one. The greater good, of course, would sometimes mean supporting oppressive dictators who took a zero-tolerance approach to activism, and this is why Wild Bill's legacy will always have its critics. In 1957, while in hospital in Thailand, Bill's dementia got the better of him. Vanity Fair wrote that his last days were sad and his mental state was not good at all. That report said about Wild Bill with dementia, he imagined he saw the Red Army coming over the 59th Street Bridge into Manhattan, and in one memorable last mission, fled the hospital, wandering down the street in his pajamas.
Whoa.
Wild Bill Donovan passed away on February 8th, 1959. He was 76.
Man, that black
If you
is
like this
crazy.
video,
Oh,
I have 2 more great ones for you.
yeah.
Click this video here to watch one now, or this one over here.
Man,
Check it out.
I think that's all we gonna really get into for the day. Chop.
Yeah, because brother,
Flavor
brother,
salt.
man.
You
Wait,
won't be
hold
able
on,
to choose
don't-
a favorite.
Don't check that.
Maybe you will.
And then by the video playing, it's messing
Trying to
all
see what he
over.
doing. Man. It's playing. Yeah, it's gonna keep playing and stuff.
Right.
So we might have
The
to do,
Aztec
brother.
lived
Might
without
have to
plague,
just
without a lack of food, and without
turn this
equals.
one off, bro.
This should have been the closest anyone had ever come
Get
until then,
leave out and try to see if we can get him
and yet they waged constant
jump
war,
on it.
practiced cannibalism, and sacrificed
Chop, you back?
thousands of people
Yeah.
alive every year.
Thank you, brother. You been
Organization creates such
we
a
about to
Man.
we about to end it off, dog.
violent
Had
brutality.
to use the waiter.
In this series,
Yeah, all that coffee and all that bullshit ain't work, huh?
the mythical
No, I'm
goes
up.
to the
I was
rise
in the
of their
bathroom.
civilization.
Man, you
And
been
until
gone then, brother. You been letting
we
commercials
move
and
to
everything
the
play, dog.
We're
You left
going
for
to
the
look
middle of the show, so
culture and
we
their
about to
economic.
end it off, dude.
We're going to analyze how their policies in these
We got
matters
everything off, so you can, whatever that is playing, you can cut that off.
why it
We
wasn't
we
another.
already finished the video.
We don't know a lot about the Aztec people before they founded.
Oh, that's video turned into that video.
Drinking that mud in there, boy.
Yeah, bro, we been
Straight,
just.
straight ain't. Look,
I was
ain't
just about to
straight
say. I guess we just
nothing.
gotta leave P360. I don't know, bro. We've been trying to get your attention, though.
The First World War is coming to an end.
But yeah, man. I mean, that's basically the introduction, and us getting to know these people, the CIA, man. I mean,
Yeah, we
any
got a
closing
lot.
statements anybody want to give on what they sort of like?
Yeah, it's a lot of different agencies got created just that quick.
A
And
lot.
notice it was a
They say it's
relatively
a lot
short
of
time span that them agencies all got created.
that
it's crazy.
nigga Paul said we got a lot of agencies. And they
Man,
got
come on, man.
agencies backing them too.
Anybody else closing statements, man?
Y'all can hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Yeah,
you.
closing statement.
Yeah, fuck. I'm just ready to start getting down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah, man.
Start getting down to these
So
operations.
far,
Some of these real key players, the Nazi names.
I mean, they gave us a couple of key players on, a couple of them videos. I mean, Roosevelt, Truman, Wild Bill, J. Edgar Hoover. A lot of these people are key players in the whole existence of this shit. You know what I'm saying? These
Yeah,
people
it's
played
going on.
a significant role with the government, both sides too, Republican and Democrat. Mostly Democrat at the time because the Republic, this was a republic. So, I, yeah, man. And I'm saying to know that a lot of this existed actually before, the wars, the World War II. I mean, it's crazy to know that because think about it, how far does this actually do go back if you trace it all the way back when they was beefing in Europe? You know what I'm saying?
Well,
With
see,
the Soviet Union and all that. Like Russia been beefing with Europe. That's what
If
they
it
that's what
went
they
back,
telling us.
if it went back up into the
he
20s,
mentioned a lot
we
of people,
presume
but
that there have been
Yeah.
they
spies
just on the
and
surface.
agents working for governments since before the Civil War.
Yeah, way before that. That's what I'm saying. We talking about world wars. The civil came, after.
Right, but remember, we had the spies that were basically using one side against the other. Oh, I'm fighting for the North, but I'm really working for the South, and I'm fighting for the South even though I'm working for the North. Then you had those that was in between
That's true.
playing
That is
both
those
sides of the
tactics.
field.
You're right.
So that's what I'm saying. I think that the type of CIA action that they talking about was going on long before we got to the actual birth
Right.
of
That's
the
that's what
CIA.
right. Because that's what they were saying. These tactics come from overseas. They wanted the same thing that the Europeans was doing over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what was weird about it is you did all that to flee from Europe only to come over here and do the same type of shit. You could have just
Yeah,
stayed there.
because look how they gain power doing it. Look, I mean, it's, this shit must be foolproof, Peter. Look at this shit now, bro. With even just coming and jumping back into the future with this Ukraine thing and how our president is responding to it, knowing that we have all these organizations plus the CIA, like it's crazy. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Look how you respond when you know you have all these. Yeah,
You got the National Security Agency, the OSS. You got the ASAF and all these other motherfucking people.
boy,
God
you gonna be
damn.
an alphabet boy out here. Tell you try to run all them motherfuckers down. Hey, you a genius if you run all that shit down. There's too many of them, though. And
Way
like I
too
said,
many.
they all
But
from the bottom of your
that's what
foot
I was saying.
to
You got a lot of
in the
agencies
clouds.
out here that's so called here to help the people, but they just here to be in your business. How many people you got in your house? How much your annual income is? What's your youngest child? What's your mother-in-law's maiden name? What's your father's maiden name? All of
And they
this
do all
stuff.
that with paperwork. See, they do all that with paperwork. A lot of people now they give that without with no problem. Look how
You get,
look how far we
I,
done got with giving out information. And look how easy we give out information to this day. All
and
less involvement with the advancement of the CIA and all these other, like I said, all these other bureaus. It's crazy, though. It's crazy, man. Yeah, man. So, man, we got that out the way, man. So, yeah, y'all join us for part two, man. Birth of a Nation. We didn't got past it. Us, really getting to know the CIA. So now, Birth of a Nation part two, Blunt Talk, talking about the operations and projects of these bureaus. You know what I'm saying? So y'all be prepared. Each one of my brothers gonna bring forth a clip or whatever they want to bring forth, and then they're gonna give commentary. We're gonna give our opinions on it, and we're gonna move on and switch through like that on y'all. You know what I'm saying? We each gonna have one, so y'all just prepare yourself for 3 different operations that's ran through these bureaus. You know what I'm saying? We're
You know
gonna
what I'm
keep bringing
saying?
it to
Look,
y'all as long as this train keep going all the way up until this Ukraine and Russia thing, and
well,
how
Bill,
involved are we really? So
pick it.
y'all just stay tuned, man. This is Blunt Talk, all cap, no space. I'm your host, Silent Child 17.
P360 in the building.
Chop Trace in the building.
And we will be right back at your neck. Just like that. Blunt Talk, all cap, no space. NOLA on YouTube, y'all. Y'all check us out. Blunt Talk, all cap, no space on Anchor and all other podcasts.
Platform.
You know what I'm saying? Especially that Spotify. I know a lot of people got that Spotify. So y'all go
Yeah,
hit
we
that
can't
up.
lose
And the one on iPhone. What that is on iPhone, y'all?
Apple iTunes.
Yeah, there you go. Boom. That one too, y'all. Blunt Talk, all cap, no space.
And we out.